be our introduction to Microsoft Word, session 4, the finale. We're going to take everything that we've done up to this point and put it together all in one package. And as you've seen throughout this whole series on Microsoft Word, we're going to show you again how those ribbons work and how we make this document utilizing all those ribbons. But before we do that, just a few housekeeping things that we want to go through. Again, this is the Zoom etiquette. If you don't mind, make sure everybody here, please stay muted during the presentation. The presentation is being recorded for training purposes and for future use to the public. If you do, as always, if you have any questions along the journey of this presentation, make sure to jot those down and we will go over those at the conclusion of the training. An overview of today. Again, this is session 4 of the finale. So we're going to pull all these pieces together just like we have before. We're going to talk about how we build that document and interconnect those ribbons to make an awesome document. We'll add some pictures a little bit as well, and we'll format that text so it'll be well ready to present. We'll also show you, again, that spell check and then how you will be able to take the text. Also, maybe you can get a word count too if you're under a deadline with a certain amount of words that can be in a document. We'll also look at those as well. And then the final thing we'll go through is formatting how to print, because all of those little elements that we saw last time in the printing part of it, you have just so much that can be shown on those ribbons, but then we drill further and you have a lot more options when it comes to getting everything ready to print. So that's what we'll be doing today. We'll get all of these little things coming together in one document. So now we will go ahead and start by building the document. So let me switch screens real quick and we will go into our presentation here, just a moment. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Word document. Okay. So again, we have right here, and then this will be a lot more interactive today, as you'll see a lot more on the show when it comes to seeing it live, how we put all of these pieces together. So again, what we'll start with is that on the finale, you're then going to have, let me do this real quick. Let me see, I just need to move my screen just a second. And where'd it go? Oh, just a second. A little technical difficulty, just a second. Let's see if that works. And, okay, it should be, all right, here we go, good. Okay, so again, the finale, and it's like we had a title for our page called the finale in Microsoft Word. When we start building this document, you're going to want to make sure that you have your title. And if you remember in the ribbons, we have the home ribbon, the insert and design. The home one has your most common things that you're going to see in Microsoft Word. So first off, we want to make sure that that title is centered up and looking as kind of standout of that document. So first, let's go ahead and make sure we're going to look up here at, and I think I can zoom in just a little bit here. Remember our view tab, we have the zoom feature. We can zoom in a little further in. Matter of fact, I'm going to go into about 125%. There we go, just a little bit closer. So on here, the finale, we want to make that the center part of our document. So first, we want to go over here on the Home tab and move this to center. And because this has a little subtitle, a guide you will never forget, we want to also make that center as well. Because it's a title, you want to make it, you also want it to stand out. So we can make it bigger too. We can highlight both of these. And up here at the top, again, you have two choices here. You can either do it by the numbers, which is pretty common, make those bigger, and then, or you can do this increased size, or like that. Okay? So you got the title, you've got your subtitle. We're going to then highlight this. We're going to make this bold. All right, the finale. Look how it stands out. That's what's really, really awesome here. And then you can take this right below. We're going to italicize this. So remember the italicize right here by the bold. You can make that in an italicized format. So now we've got that in place. Although it looks like there's a lot of extra space, I'm going to take this one line over. There we go. So now it looks a little bit better. So now we got our title, but as you can see, it's also still centered. So we want to take that back to this other part. And we also want to make it a little bit smaller, down to 14 font size. So we have now have that in place. But everything, you know, paragraph 1, yeah, paragraph 1 is going to stay right here, right? It's a little bit smaller, but it's also very readable. You're going to have that right there. Paragraph 2. Paragraph 3. And paragraph 4. And with those, we're gonna do a little bit different things to each of these. Okay, so now you can see we have 4 paragraphs that we're starting. Now, one we want to look at too is that when we build this document, we want to make sure that if we wanted to have text to go with it. So in paragraph 1, I love the color blue because it reminds me of the water at the lake. So again, you have our first paragraph here, which is really nice. I'm going to take off paragraph 1 just for this instance. Okay. So again, this paragraph, and if you remember the tab button as well, you can also go in and tab it as well. In this case, I'm just going to kind of keep it here so you can see just see it all together. But again, you can also, with this, you can now have, you know, I love the color blue. And if you wanted to, you could actually change these documents in here to change the color. I like the color blue, so why don't we make it blue? We could. I'm going to try to find a better blue here. But we'll go with that. So we got blue. And again, you can also make it bold, like that, which is really cool. And also, if I wanted to, I could underline it. So I like the color blue. And see, sometimes they give you suggestions on here. You'll also see the little dotted line that came up. You could actually make it where they'll give you suggestions along the way too. If you right click on it, it's going to tell you, you know, you consider using concise language. I could say, instead of I love the color blue, I could say I love blue. And that will replace it. But again, in this case, it also took off some of my formatting. That's okay. Put those back real quick. Yeah, I think I had a bold too. Okay, so like you see, you saw another nice little element in there. You can also do you actually create that sentence. You can then change the formatting of it, and sometimes it will give you a correction to allow you to make complete sentences more concise. And as you saw there, I said I love the color blue, but really I could just say I love blue because it reminds me of the water at the lake. That's one way we could look at it. So that's one thing you can do. In paragraph 2, one of the great things too is that, and because I like to toot our horn, the summit, I want to make sure that I want to put in here, the summit is a great place to come and work out, hang out with friends, and enjoy concerts. Okay, so just start up a new sentence in the second paragraph. Now, one thing you can do, one thing that's really nice about it is that you can actually add pictures too. So one of the things too that I'm going to add is a picture of the Summit logo. Now, what is really cool here is that I'm going to take one of these. Let's see here. Here we go. Actually, that's not the one I was wanting. Let me go back here, insert. Remember the insert tab. Then we went down here to pictures. Now we can add the Summit logo. There we go. Now what's really cool about this is you can see it looks a little odd right now, but we're going to be able to fix that. When you look at this, you're going to see on the document that you have the text kind of over to the right and kind of going to another line. And then you also have the logo that's kind of taking up this whole page. You can make that even smaller and also make it where the text will actually form around that image. Why that's important is for formatting, it's going to look really nice. So again, I can actually take this, and what happens is when you get an image on Microsoft Word, you will then see the format menu come up. And that's what you see up here at the top. And right here, you have the positioning of that actual object, or in this case, the logo. So on here, we can go in and we can move all that stuff around. Or what I can do is I can actually shrink it down, just like this. And what you saw there is that I can go in here, and at the bottom corner of the image, I can move it up and down. Always recommend using the bottom corner and bringing it. It keeps what they call the aspect ratio in place. That means that the image will actually stay in its exact form. They'll just make it smaller, just like you're seeing right here. Just hit the bottom up here at the bottom corner and bring it up and down. You can just see it stays just in that same aspect ratio. Okay. So like I said, we got a nice little size right there for the logo. Now, but what's really cool is that you can actually, what they call wrapping text. You can actually take this text that's right next to it and put it right next to the logo in a nicer form. So what you'll do is actually you're going to have, let me get back to the format menu. And we're going to wrap text. And then what we're going to have here is that it's going to actually then do, I think it's right, I think it was square, yeah. And as you see here, you see in the second paragraph that our text is now moved completely to the side of that image. And the Summit is a great place to come and work out, hang out with friends, and enjoy concerts. So you got that in place now. One of the next things we can look at in paragraph 3, we're gonna do some more formatting of this stuff here. And I'm gonna put in a new sentence. Grand Prairie is growing at a fast pace. So we've got another sentence here. Grand Prairie is growing at a fast pace. And again, we can highlight Grand Prairie as kind of our main thing here. So you can make it bigger if you wanted to. I want Grand Prairie to stand out in the sentence, so I can do that. You can also go in here and also change it to different, if you wanted to do a different type of effect on it, you could do that as well. And you could see Grand Prairie, you see all these different effects that you could do with the text. And then see it changes every time that you go in and highlight over it. So that was kind of cool, I like that. So you can actually take those texts, you can take the text on the page and then you could actually change the effects of it. And what that does is allow you to have it stand out. And standing out is very, very important when it comes to putting together a sheet like this. So again, Grand Prairie in this case is growing at a fast pace. And we took that image again, and how we did that, I highlighted the word Grand Prairie in this case. I then went up here to the top to text effects and topography. And I selected one of these. You see it just changes the highlight of it. Just like that. So you can make that, you can do things with that. And then you also can do in growing, we can actually make, we wanted to change it to red. This growing is really emphasized here. Grand Prairie is growing at a fast pace. So you can change the text on here. You can also do the effects of it. And again, it doesn't matter how you want it. You just saw how we did paragraph 2 as a logo. So those kind of things are important too. So we got that in place. Paragraph 4, our final one. In conclusion, I could type, in conclusion, this document looks fantastic. I want to make more documents like this. So we have kind of our conclusion here at the end. And if I wanted to make this a new image right here at the bottom. And in that, I can put something in here. I can put another picture. And I was going to see if, oh yeah, here we go. We also have this. So we can kind of make that in here. We can, remember how we shrunk it? We can shrink it down here. And that's kind of the end of our document. So you can also, you can put these in here, or I could do it just like I did before. I could put it to the side. And then again, in the format menu, you can then take that and you can go in and you can actually wrap it around the text like that. But I could also, you could also change the alignment. It doesn't always have to be on the left. You can also move it to the right side too, if you like. And what that can do is that back in the home, we can then, if I click on, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the format, that's right. So format, we can also move it to onto the right side, okay? So again, you can move it to any direction you want. And this is just another way you can do it. But again, that's how we kind of built the document. We're able to go in and use these multiple things. You saw up here the different tabs that we had. The home, insert, design. When we did one, we actually had a format menu come up when we added a picture. It assumes that you're going to want to alter that picture to create that document and make it look nice. And that's why format comes up every time you're working with an image. And that's what we did here. And you can also change these shapes too. As you see, a lot of things in Word you can hover over, which is nice. That's kind of cool. So you can have that fade effect a little bit. So you have a lot of those too. You can turn that back as well. And actually kind of neat though, if I kind of make this a little bit better, I could bring this up to the top. Even give it another enter down and bring this right here. So we've got that too. We can do these things as well. It's not giving me a lot of room, so let me give it some more space here. There we go. There we go. So like I said, you can center that up and make it like a top logo as well. So again, that's how we kind of build the document. Again, these are some of the little tactics that you can do to make these things great. Let's switch back to the presentation real quick and go on to our next part. And next, we were building the document right now, but now we want to move to the next thing. And we talked about inserting pictures in the formatting. Like you saw, we got in here and we added a logo, and we also altered the position of it. We even shrunk it down a little bit. So we brought those images, even a big image down to a smaller image. So we inserted that picture, or the logo in this case. We formatted it by moving it up and down, even moving it across the page a little bit. So we kind of hit that on that just a little bit already. Proofing the document. Now we got all the text in there. We've inserted some pictures and formatted it. Now we want to proof it to make sure everything sounds right. So that's important. When you get ready to finish up your document, you want to make sure it looks good. So we want to make sure it's proofed. So again, in the proofing, what we'll do now, go right back here. And now we're going to go and take a look at our next thing here. And in here, we're going to go into the review tab right here. And as you remember, we also have the spelling and grammar check. We can do that in here. Oh, it gave me something that was perfect. Now let's put something in there though. Like, okay, let's just see if it does anything this time. It's actually being very strange today. Let's try again here, because there was something, I should have had something in here already. And one thing you also see too is that these newer versions will help you autocorrect too. So if it knows what you're trying to type, it'll include an apostrophe, for instance, and like don't or won't or can't. Those kind of things will be showing up as well. So I'm typing in a new sentence real quick. so now we're going to look at this part. Yeah, that's not being cooperative. But again, you also have the spell check and grammar. Like we get it. You can go in here if you do have any text, and we had one kind of earlier, if you remember, when we said I love the color blue. Now that would probably show up on the spell check because it's one that is looking at grammar and complete sentences, and on there you will see that the color blue, it was adding a little bit more to the sentence when really we just want to say I love blue. But again, a lot of things in the document, and usually you'll see some squiggly lines that come up if you write something wrong, if you type something incorrectly, or it recognizes that something is a little bit different than, you know, the sentence could be better. So there's ways that you could do that. So we also will, in this case, it actually worked pretty well, but we did have one little instance early in the, you know, when we started that the color blue was giving it a little bit of a alert, you know, we do have some way we can make this better. And that's what they suggested, and I think the suggestion was good. But we do have that ability to do the spell checker. They also, as thesaurus, we kind of touched on this a little bit before. Sometimes you can also check and see if there's words that are being used quite often, and maybe you can change it out for something. So we do have that ability in the thesaurus. It'll use the document, find other words that are, you know, have similar meanings but could be used differently. So we do have that ability. And then we also have the word count. You know, the word count is also one of those things that if you're doing a project and they give you a specific amount of words that you can't go over, then you can, and you have to stay in between, then you can do a word count on this. If I click on that, it's going to give you a little box of a summary, as you can see. And let me see if I can get in there a little closer. Again, if you need to move any closer, oh, it's not letting me do that. But you can kind of see in here, you know, if you're following along on here in Word, you can do that too. You can then see that it gives you statistics of that document. And you're able to then find how many pages it was, how many words, characters, you know, if you're doing paragraphs, all of those different things are there. And also it gives you very, very detailed stuff. Sometimes you just need to know a word count. In this case, 13 words are in here. And that's, again, highlighted because it's highlighted. Now, what I could do is take that off and do a word count here. Now, oh, this looks a little bit more like it. Okay, so now you have now how many pages? We're on one page, 74 words. That looks about right. And then you also have your line checks. You can, if you needed to have some more specific things to look for, it gives you that as well. But most of the time, it's just a word count or how many characters are in there. You have that. This is where you can get that. Okay, and so again, then this is where if you wanted to do show comments and if you need to add comments for somebody to proof this, you could do that. You can then show the comments. You then also, once you have those comments in there and you send to somebody else, they can either accept the comments or you can accept it whenever it gets back to you, or you can reject all of that and it keeps the same thing. So you could do either one of those. And again, a lot of these things, I don't recommend using the restrict editing. I mean, you can make it where it freezes everything, but if you do lose that password, So let me keep that down. I wouldn't recommend doing that if you can. It's really important that you're, try not to use the restrict editing. But again, that's kind of the proofing side of it, using that review tool. The review tab is also, again, one of those places that's kind of overlooked. Like we talked about that earlier in the series, that sometimes you'll forget about checking your document and making sure that everything is nice and perfected for when it's its final product. Very, very important. But again, proofing the document, that's kind of what we've looked at right here. Now let me go back here back to the presentation real quick, and we will move on to our next thing. And formatting and finalizing. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to kind of wrap it up. We're going to go ahead and try to put the print things together. So again, formatting, we want to clean this up just a little bit now. All right. So now back to the presentation. We will now see how we can format this. Okay, so now we've got I love blue because it reminds me of the water in the lake. All right, we can then go ahead and put an indentation here. And then I've also got all of these things too. So we can put an indentation as well on those. And the formatting here, if you remember, we also in the layout area, we can actually adjust the margins as well as our orientation. And if you wanted a different type of paper, you could. It again, Microsoft Word defaults to 8.5 by 11. So if when you do print, you will have that ability to change that if you do desire to. A lot of those though will become, you'll be able to print a letter document, or if you have a legal size, you could print a legal if your printer or your copier allows it. So again, we can now use more of the page now. You could look at the margins, and right here it's showing normal. So again, that's what defaults to in Microsoft Word. You can then change it if you wanted to have more narrow margins, where everything will then actually expand further. So if I hit the narrow margins, look at that. Everything moved over. But my little logo looks kind of off, doesn't it? I could move that over just a little bit. But you see, it's also kind of doing some different things here. Let's do this. So I want to go back in here, the format menu's back. And let me see if I can get the wrap text. Let's see. Where did it go? It's being kind of mean. So in this case, we're not going to mess with it because we're running out of time. But we can make the logo. You can, again, work with these logos as well. You can also bring it down here too. And I can move it back to another side. Let's see, where'd it go? Or you could put it up there. you could use it, or you could actually just take it out if you want. That's all good too. But now that also kind of fixes up your sentence here. Okay, so everything's been indented. All right, so now you got that. So we can clean up all of our stuff. We can then, when it comes down to more of the formatting side, we can then go to our layout area. Now layout is also very important because we have those launch buttons. And remember back early on when we had the launch buttons going through this, we then can expand the menu a little further when it comes to these settings, because the launch button gives you a lot more choices. Okay, so again, we kind of like this format for the print. We like that. That's good. We want it to be in a regular format, not landscape. The portrait's good, and then like we said, we have narrow margins, but we may want to go back to that. So let's do this. We can cancel out of this. The margins, we can go back to normal if we want to. So that looks a lot better, doesn't it? It brings everything in and everything's perfectly spaced in the middle. So you have a nice document there. And then what you have too, on here you can actually, if you have a lot of text, you can do page breaks to space out a lot more of the materials if you want. If you want to increase indentions, you could, or you can lessen them. All of those are available. Absolutely. So again, we got some of these in place to work, but because these sentences are so short, I might actually just go ahead and bring them back to the end where it's all lining up nicely. But I wanted you to see that you can indent, and when you do have a lot of text, indenting will probably look a lot better. But in this case, the sentences are short, so we will bring them back to the middle where that looks good there. Okay, so we've got, again, the Summit logo, the finale, Microsoft Word, a guide you will never forget. And we've actually created our paragraphs, and we've also formatted some text, as well as changed the color on a few of them too. So we've got a lot of stuff into this document. But then we've also had the last part. And I believe we have one more section here that we'll look at. Yeah, so, that was it. Okay, so let me do the last part of printing. So when we get ready to print, on the printing, when you do go up here to File, you can then go to Print. It's going to give you another window of just showing you exactly what you've got, and then you're able to move forward. Now that we got the settings in there, we can do that. However, it looks like there's an extra space in here. Now what I want to do, so if you need to go back to the document, you can. You can go back in here to the big arrow, and this will take you back. But it looks like there's an extra space in here. I took that out now. So that looks a little bit better. So let's try that again. We'll go back to File, and we'll go to Print. That looks a lot better. So now we've got that. We have a full page with some mixed of logos and some colors and some italicized and underlined documents. There's a little bit of everything in here. And then you would be able to pick the printer, and then you would be able to print. You can also on here, if you want, because there's only one document, you don't have to change this from print all pages. It will default to one page. However, if you do have multiple pages, excuse me, you can actually then go through and select whatever pages you want. It's real important though that you have a lot of options here in the print menu, and take those, as you can, and you can adjust accordingly. And if there was, and if you did have a certain pages you wanted to print out of a document, and that could be any document, you can go to Custom Print. And then you'll see right down here there says pages. You can just put in, if there was more than one page, you could put page, if I just want a page 2, and I don't have one on this case, but if I wanted to pay a page 2, and it was like 3 or 4 pages to it, just page 2 would print. So you can also do that too. But in this case, there's only one page, so it's just going to default to print all pages because there's only the one. Okay. We like orientation. We like it being collated, even though it's not going to really matter on this because we only have one page. But all of those are made. The orientation we like to have that in portrait style, which is good. Letter, remember we talked about the sizing. The letter case in this case is 8.5 by 11. So that's important. And then the normal margins. We tried out that narrow, but it just seemed to be a little bit too much stretch, and so we brought it back to the normal. I think that was a very nice move, so it makes it look a little bit better. And then 1 page per sheet is exactly it. So again, this is then now ready to print. When you can hit the button for print, and then it'll print off. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and kind of wrap up here. So like I said, we talked about everything together. We brought all of those elements together, from the building of a document by putting some sentences together to putting a little bit of pictures and some formatting with it, changed the colors a little bit. We also underlined it. We made even the title on that page, the finale of the Microsoft Word, we made it bold and made it bigger so it'll stand out. So those are all very, very important elements to make your actual document in Microsoft Word look and stand out nicely. And then at the end, we got all of that stuff together. We formatted it. We did spell check. We even also did a little bit of we did a word count too. And that word count, again, if for those that are having they have a certain amount of words, or if it's a project, or sometimes even awards have, if you're putting in an award, you only have a certain amount of words that you have to be able to stay within. And that word count comes into play a lot when you're doing that, because you want to make sure you're checking yourself before you submit it. So again, lots of different elements in the Word series. It's a great program. If you keep practicing on it, they're getting tons of videos here. I hope this one has been really good. And other than that, we are now at the conclusion of the presentation and the series for Microsoft Word. I'm going to go ahead and open up for any questions. We will also have more series on Microsoft Excel coming up in the next month. So please make sure to stay with it. But right now, I will open up for questions if you have anything else. And I hope you'll be able to take away a lot. And thanks again for being here.